Testing 1, 2, 3. Can everybody see me, hear me, and see our interpreters? Thank you. I would like to start out and say thank you and for spending your time with us this afternoon. We're very respectful of your time and we'll keep it in under an hour. That's our level best. We'll leave some time for question and answer afterwards. Also like to thank you, our interpreters to my right and your left, for having the capability to come here at short notice for us. We appreciate that. Also, I would like to keep our, be mindful of the people that have been affected by the storm. And we also know that there are some issues on 65 with people transporting. Also, for those of you that are online and looking at us through Zoom, we appreciate your time, and there will be time for questions and answers at the end of my talk, and we'll go from there. And if you are coming in, just go ahead and come on in and have a seat. All right. We're here today to talk about our relationship with Jefferson County Public Schools. We've been partnered with Jefferson Public Schools since 1970, all right? And Louisville Deaf Oral School started in 1948. And we've evolved, worked with Jefferson County Public Schools to help provide an educational benefit to maximize education for our deaf and hard of hearing community, all right? On this slide, you'll see that there's a lot of things that we provide in conjunction with JCPS. And let me stop by saying that our relationship with JCPS is something that we've highlighted our whole time. All right, it allows us to provide an educational benefit that I haven't seen anywhere in my career. There's a lot of different opportunities that we provide here and layer on top of what JCPS generally provides. One of those is free educational audiology access. We have music, art therapy, stream lab, dance through our ballet, small classes. You know, we focus on making sure that our kids can have that small class experience so that we're able to evoke language in whatever modality they have. Summer camp. The other thing that we do is we provide any technology upgrades these kids may have. You know, there are governmental programs that provide hearing technology, but what we do is we want to make sure that everybody that comes here has the same level of technology, and not everybody has that when they come in. So what we do is we elevate everybody's technology to the highest level that we can. Before COVID, we provided many, many other additional benefits, from like camp, like we talked about before, to tickets at the zoo, to pumpkin patch, to a lot of different events that we felt would enhance and enrich our children's education at this environment. Part of what we want to do is make sure everybody has access to that at this school. And that is what, again, and I'll mention this many, many times, the relationship that we have here with JCPS in the past has been unlike I have seen anywhere. Hello, and I'm from California, and I've been very experienced with a lot of different educational programs around the country. I'm also part of a network of agencies like this, 40 of us around the country, and there's nothing like this that I've ever seen. Next slide. One of the unique experiences that we have here, about 10 years ago when I came here, I met a gentleman by the name of John Marshall. John Marshall works at JCPS. He's in charge of their, he's the chief equity officer. And he and I had him tour here. And when he looked around and what our deaf or hard of hearing students have access to, you know, he was like, this is amazing. And I thought so too. I said, but one of the things that we don't have at this time is for our kids whose our goal is to have them mainstream in kindergarten or first grade into regular education, JCPS. I said, but they don't get exposed to that here. Why don't we open up and partner on another preschool program, typical hearing, which we called Hearing Peers Classroom, and we can enjoy that. And you guys can give us some space. We will work on, we'll provide an assistant. You guys will provide the students, the kids will intermix, and we'll work on that mainstreaming opportunity for them. In addition to, those kids will have access to everything our deaf, hard of hearing kids have. They'll be able to be partnered with the ballet, with the orchestra, you know, all these different experiences that enrich their lives. We did that, and it's been amazing. Part of the goal of that was, as our kids mainstream into regular ed, we wanted them to be exposed to what it would be like to be in school with their hearing peers. We also wanted our hearing peers classroom to be exposed to children who were born deaf or hard of hearing and may have cochlear implants or hearing aids or things of that nature, so that they could be a bridge later on in their scholastic life. They can say, oh, hey, I remember you, or I played with a child that had a cochlear implant. Let's hang out. That's what we were trying to do and accomplish, and what we've heard anecdotally from our teachers and from our parents. That's what happens when they go into mainstream school. Moving on. Those are my glasses. Sorry, excuse me. There are many, many other benefits that we're talking about. I don't want to forget any, and that's why we're putting them up here. As you can see, small class size. It's a 6-to-1 ratio with our deaf, hard of hearing students. And we do that especially in early intervention so that the teacher has the time and ability to work with those kids, because we really want them to be caught up so that when they mainstream into school, we've closed the gap. Kids that are born deaf or hard of hearing, there's an educational gap. We want to close that before they get into mainstream school. That's part of what we're doing. That small class size and the additional therapies and additional opportunities that we present are all designed to do that, to educate these kids in whatever modality they make progress in, whether it's sign or whether it's oral. School day, designed the entire day. You know, there's many opportunities throughout the day, from the orchestra to music therapy to art therapy. All of it's designed to evoke language and instill educational benefit and maximize that for their time, their entire school day here. One of the things that people ask, well, how many students are there? You know, and we have around 45 students, all right? And those people that are not familiar with deaf and hard of hearing students, it's 1 or 2 out of every 2 to 3 out of every 1,000 births, all right? And so when they come to this school and you talk to their parents, we change their lives. While it's only 40 or 45 students, but for those 40 or 45 students, their lives are changed for the rest of their life. And that's why it's so intense, and why the therapies are layered on to provide extra, to provide more therapy, so that the children that wind up going into mainstream school, which is what our goal is, have the abilities to be able to sustain themselves for the next 15 years, 17 years of their educational career, to give them those advocacy skills that they can go and they're comfortable with, to go up to their teacher in the 4th grade. I can't hear you. My device is not working. Can I sit closer? So that we can educate the parents who have these children to be able to understand that, hey, my child's going to need some extra help, or he doesn't, or she doesn't, but they know what to ask for and how to advocate for their children. Because it's easy to get lost in a very large system. Next, benefit. Thank you. I appreciate the slide. By the way, I'd like to thank our team over here who's put this together. I appreciate it. And Debbie Woods, who some of you know, is the educational director. How this works. This slide is designed to show you the development. So you look at MAP testing, which is measure of our academic progress. All right. When you look at what the last national study that we have access to, which was in 2015, you'll see what the average growth was of a student who was deaf or hard of hearing, which was 17.1 for reading and 19.1 for math. When you look at our 2018-19 school year for our kindergarten class, it was 23 and 24 points. The reason we highlight that is this program works. The program does amazing things. And I'll again say this, like I've said before, we would not be able to do this without the partnership that we have with JCPS as it is now. we help each other provide a deeper, more enriching classroom experience, educational benefit for the kids here together. And that's what's the most important thing. Our teachers downstairs, we have some teachers of our own, we have some staff of our own, and we have JCPS. But here, there's no separation. They all work together in conjunction to elevate these kids. And that's why we're here today to kind of talk about that and hopefully educate everybody onto why we're there and what we're doing now. All right. You guys all walked in here, and for those of you that are online, I'm sorry to see that, but I encourage you to come here for a tour, and we will show you around. We will have both this PowerPoint and opportunities to contact us for that on our website later. Playgrounds. Our playgrounds here were just redesigned for deaf or hard of hearing to evoke language. We have a music program. We also have a sound garden. All these things are designed for kids with sensory or deaf or hard of hearing so that it's specialized for them. All right, moving on to the next step. Thank you. This is one of our important things. When we started the program in 1950, as we discussed earlier, or 1970, I apologize, with JCPS, it was designed so that those parents who had challenges, who were from socioeconomic areas that didn't have the number of resources, that their education of those kids here, what they could get here for free, that we do not charge for, is the same as if somebody was coming in and their parents had access to wealth. We wanted to make sure that every child that comes here, no matter what background they're from, no matter where they live, has the same access to if their parents had hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's what they get here. They get the same kinds of things, the upgraded technology, the best of everything. And that's because we have incredible teachers that are provided by JCPS, and then we add on top of that and put more money into it, more resources. You can see from our mix of students, a lot of our students are minority. One of the things that JCPS is highlighting, and we've always been in partnership with it, is equitable education. There shouldn't be a divide, especially in early education, between parents who have money and parents who don't, between parents from different racial backgrounds. There should not be a divide in early education, because if you go down to those kids now, they don't see any of that. They just play. There's no difference between them, between race, between whether or not they have a cochlear implant, between whether or not they're deaf or hard of hearing, or they're speaking. They just play. And that's what's so beautiful about this program that we want to continue. Why are we talking about this year? Why are we having this meeting now? In November, Jefferson County Public Schools came to us and said, we're going to change our funding with you. And the question that we responded was, okay, what does that mean? Well, we're going to change our service agreement, because in the past, the service agreement, we gave you teachers. We need those teachers back. We're going to take the teachers, but we'll give you money. And our response was, well, if we don't have the teachers, why do we need the money? And then we looked at the students that would be removed from the program because they no longer had transportation to be able to get here. And we said, that doesn't make any sense. We don't charge you. They said, well, it costs X number of dollars there. And my response was, it doesn't cost you guys anything here. Our partnership has always been, we will fundraise, we will provide the resources so that we can close the educational gap of the deaf or hard of hearing in Jefferson County. And that's what we've always continued to do. So it didn't make sense to us. So I was able to reach out to Councilman David James, and we were able, and Diane Porter, our board member, school board member, and we had a meeting with Dr. Polio, where I explained what we were just talking about here. I said, you know, you've not had an opportunity to come to this program to see what we do. I would invite you to do that, you know, and we talked about that if you're going to change something like this, we need some time to prepare the community. We need some time to prepare those parents who have special needs children that their environment is going to change. in addition to, we also at that time wanted to talk about our Hearing Peers program. Now, the results of that was Dr. Polio said, look, I understand we will continue the Deaf, Hard of Hearing program for one more year to give those parents the ability to do that. But after that, the funding is going to change and we'll do a dollar contract versus a service contract. And again, I said, I mean, it kind of gives us a choice of hiring the teachers away from JCPS, which doesn't solve the JCPS teacher problem. So we started talking back and forth. And about a month ago, we were informed that the Hearing Peers classroom is going to be removed, to Doss Norman, which is about a half a block away. It's a great program. I'm not going to deny that JCPS does the best it can, but we haven't been informed or told that they would get the same kinds of things that we provide here on top of what JCPS normally provides. Access to everything that we just talked about. And for us, that was a travesty. And we encourage JCPS that we can sit down and have a conversation and say, what are your needs? What is the reasoning? How can we help? What can we do? That's been the offer for 50 years. Haven't been talked about with that. That is really why we're having this conversation with our parents, with our alumni, with everybody that's involved in this thing, so that maybe they'll get some answers, so that we can look at and say, how can we continue this portion? I see that we may need a switch of our interpreter. I'm talking very quickly, and they taught me how to do this. Did I do good? Thank you. And so essentially that's kind of the reason why we wanted to have this conversation with our community, because it'll be you guys who are affected. It'll be those children who can't advocate for themselves that'll be affected. It'll be parents that can't advocate for themselves that are going to be affected. And I think the entire school board, and I also think that JCPS staff, all of them need to understand that how can we work together rather than separate. It makes sense for us all to come together on behalf of these children. When you have two equal working partners, the child's going to do a whole lot better. And when we involve the parents and be able to help them do this for the children, that's what we're trying to do. Those are our results. So that's what we are able to do for the children together. I would like for all of us to continue that relationship together so that we can provide the best, most amazing educational benefit and maximize their school so that they're able to go into the first grade or kindergarten ahead of the game, ready to take on the rest of their career, ready to take on their educational benefit and succeed. With that, one more thing. I have talked to every teacher I know. I have talked to every administrator I know, both in California and in any other state that I can talk to. And I explained to them what we provide and how we provide it and how our partnership works. And they all say this is an amazing partnership. None of them, not one person, can understand why this would happen. Recording in process. Yeah. So with that, what I would do is open it up to any questions that are online. And Shannon, do we have any questions that are online, or do we have any questions here? Come on, David James. That would be
who other than Dr. Polio can we email, call, and harass about this?
Well, I don't know that we want to harass anyone. Again, I will go back to we have a lot of staff here from JCPS, and we love them. And I think that the decision that's made to change the funding level is made out of one where they're trying to do best for most and are not as familiar about this program as we can. All right, so it's a 50-year relationship. I want to continue that. But that being said, we will have those answers for you posted online. But I believe, and Ms. Woods, who can you get a microphone? Who is it that's also in charge? It's Dr. Polio. Is there a Miss Chevalier? Is she?
The head of the special ed department would be, yes, Ms. Chevalier. I would definitely contact her. I would also contact your Jefferson County Public Schools board member just to let them know awareness is always a first step.
Thank you.
Yes. And I know we have some questions online.
Okay.
Right now, we have about 3 or 4 questions on the people who are joining us on Zoom.
Thank you.
The first one is, so this is a money issue I'm not fully understanding.
I can answer it this way. It shouldn't, it's not a money issue. All right. We receive no funding, no cash dollar funding from Jefferson County Public Schools. They do not write us a single check. The money that JCPS spends, my understanding, and I'm open to correction, is that they have staff that they supply us here. That staff would be moved somewhere else. They're not being terminated. There's no cost reduction. The same amount of transportation is going to have to occur. That's why we don't understand, is because we don't charge them anything. It doesn't cost them, to my knowledge, anything more to have it here. They're not saving anything. It's not becoming more efficient the way it's been explained to me. It's just being moved. Their teachers are just being moved. And in that, we've not been told whether or not everything else that we supply that we just went through is going to be replicated in the communities that they're being moved to. So it's not a money issue that we know of.
Next question, do you have a link to the specific proposal?
We don't have a specific proposal. We have the relationship that we've had for 50 years, which is a memorandum of agreement, essentially is a service contract where if there are kids that are deaf or hard of hearing within this program or in the Hearing Peers program, they're placed here and we supply everything that we've done in the past.
Okay, next question. Oop, sorry, I scrolled too far. Explain further the teacher aspect of the proposed cutback. Is it because of teacher shortage?
So I appreciate that question. It's not a cutback. All right. So there are teacher shortages, and that was explained that there are teacher shortages and they want to bring the teachers back into JCPS owned buildings. But the kids aren't, they're the same number of kids. So unless they're removing the amount of time that teacher of deaf hard of hearing spends with those children, then that's how those teachers could see one. But for teachers or kids that have deaf or hard of hearing issues or deaf hard of hearing, it's a 6-to-1 ratio during the whole school day here. Unless that's going to be changed in their community schools that they're moving to, it's not going to help with any ratios. As it's been explained to us, I have asked during that time with Dr. Polio, what is the plan? The response has been, we can service their educational needs. That's fine. I bet you can. And I'm sure that they can. They do the best they can, but I think that all this other stuff won't be there. I just don't know.
What is the most immediate need for Heiser? Losing teachers, transportation, or funding?
Well, funding, I mean, funding is always an issue with any kind of educational thing, but for us, with the separation of JCPS and removing the teachers, that's going to affect it. And then those kids that utilize transportation to come here won't be able to come here to get these other services. Now, in all fairness, if they're moved to a JCPS home site, they will have transportation, they will have nutritional services. They just won't have all this extra stuff that we provide. And we do that on our own. We fundraise for ourselves. Now, we have our own teachers of deaf hard of hearing. We have our own assistants. We don't have a nutrition plan as of yet. We don't have transportation. The biggest difficulty difficulty is the kids that are transported here, especially in that hearing peers classroom, 87% of those kids that are transported here are minority. Their parents don't have transportation, so they wouldn't be able to access the additional benefits that are provided in this location. They will be able to be transported to whatever school they would be moved to. So transportation only goes to those parents. So what would happen is only those parents who have cars, who can transport their own children, would be able to attend Heiser. And that's the unfortunate part, because then that starts, it just isn't a good thing moving forward.
Do you have a list of specific concerns and key talking points that should be included?
We will be posting this PowerPoint online today or tomorrow morning at the latest, and you will be able to download it, look at it. You can utilize those to contact your school board member so that they're aware. I know Ms. Diane Porter is working on getting the school board members to tour here so they can see everything that the children from JCPS get in addition to what JCPS provides. And those will be in there, but I do want, you should use your own language to talk to them, not what we say, but what you feel.
Will the restructuring result in no teachers and/or classes being offered at Heiser? Will all of the deaf, hard of hearing children be placed with teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing?
That's a very good question. No, we have our own teachers of deaf, hard of hearing. We have 2. And at a 6-to-1 ratio, it means we'll be able to have 12 kids that are deaf or hard of hearing. Now, the deaf and hard of hearing population in early intervention at a preschool level ebbs and flows. We've gone from, our teachers ebb and flow, and that's always been our agreement with JCPS. If we need more teachers because there are more students in the public school forum, then they provide those teachers. If we don't need them, then the teachers are put back in JCPS, and that's fine. It's only if we have that number of students do they add the staff, just like they would have to do in their own schools. But for us, if all JCPS employees are removed and the contract is changed to where it's a dollar funding amount rather than a service funding amount, then we'll have space for 12. So if there's 15, then we won't. And again, it goes back to that point where those parents who don't have transportation won't be able to get their kids here. And even if, and we're working on trying to get transportation so kids could be here, but then if the teachers are all gone in the school base, in the home base at JCPS, there won't be enough teachers here, and we'll have to build that program over time. We had some questions. We had some questions in the audience.
Want to do
So
some audience? and
yeah,
then
let's get
come
some
back
audience
to
questions.
Dr. Moron?
Perfect.
My name is Natalie. My daughter is here. Her name's Annabelle. She is not hard of hearing. We found out about Heiser from our occupational therapist in First Steps, and she has apraxia. So apraxia is that difficulty forming words to speak and talk. So when Annabelle came to Heiser, she had about 20 words and about 20 signs as well. Now Annabelle is talking in sentences and communicating with us. When I found out that we would no longer be able to come to Heiser next year because she's not in a hard of hearing program, they informed me they were unaware of breaking ties, which made me feel betrayed by JCPS because my concerns for Annabelle in her non-instructional time, currently she is pulled for speech therapy that we pay for privately. So Annabelle had the opportunity to have JCPS public speech therapy provided to her. And in addition, was able to pay for private services for Annabelle. When I asked JCPS about getting her speech therapy at whatever school they were to send us to, I was told she would no longer be able to have private speech therapy offered to her. And I think it is vital for Annabelle's treatment, Annabelle's preschool experience, to have not only what JCPS will provide, which is minimal, but to also have private speech therapy offered to her at school. So I know a lot of this conversation is about the hard of hearing program. Heiser is Hearing and Language Academy. And my biggest focus is on the language part, which Heiser has been able to provide for my daughter. She's not at her most potential. She still has another year that will significantly improve her speech and ability to interact with her peers. And I am heartbroken that we do not have the opportunity to continue with the services here. And the other thing that we drive here every day, my husband drops her off in the morning. I pick her up in the afternoons. But she also had so many other opportunities. She loves art. When she first started school, that's all I heard about was what she was doing in art. And I don't feel like some of the therapies and things that she's able to get here. So ballet is another class she has begun to talk to us about. And even the Louisville Orchestra and their involvement here at the school as well will not be offered to her at a typical preschool.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And again, I know why we're original mission was deaf or hard of hearing. The beautiful classroom that we were able to start that your daughter's now a part of was designed to give those kids, and it's evolved to speech apraxia and to language issues because of the intercorrelation of all the expertise we have in this building. All these teachers have amazing knowledge when it comes to, and I say deaf or hard of hearing, but when it comes to language acquisition, when it comes to speech, when it comes to speech apraxia, all this is part of their education and training. And because we're having that hearing peers classroom, it helps both populations, and it helps and enriches the educational benefit that these kids have. I agree with you. I wish that we would continue that program, and we're trying to figure out how to do that. We don't have as much time, and if anything were to come from our conversation today, at least give us one more year of the typical hearing classroom, so that we have parents such as yourselves or the JCPS students that are unaware that they would open it back up so people could be placed here, so that those kids could be placed. Because I guarantee if we had parent choice of those kids that are using public transportation to come here and they saw what they were provided here, in addition to what JCPS can provide and the additional cultural events that they can do and the additional services that they can access that we provide to them as well, they would all choose it. They weren't given that choice. I understand that the school district is facing unique issues, and I understand and I empathize with how hard those decisions must be. I and you, people in this room, have the fortunate position that these are the kids that I'm advocating for. These are the kids that we advocate for. Those kids that can be placed here that come from areas that they wouldn't normally get access to these kinds of benefits. All right, so hopefully we can continue that. We will stay in touch and be able to do that. Yes.
This actually kind of goes with her question or her statement, a very powerful statement. Thank you, Natalie. My daughter is also in the typical classroom with her child, and we actually pay privately to be there. Thankfully, that has been a wonderful opportunity for every child in my family since you all have opened this, wonderful situation. But more my question is of concern of where will Natalie go, where will Annabelle go? Are you all aware of any specific preschool program within JCPS that specializes in deaf ed or language? Because my understanding is that that's kindergarten and above currently. Where will the teachers go? Is there a preschool program for deaf ed in JCPS?
That's a very good question. And I'll pass it over to Debbie to give you a more clarifying answer, but my understanding is we're it. Because of our relationship has been for 50 years, that's who's been doing it. We're unaware of them starting this way. And with our hearing peers classroom, let me explain part of what you just mentioned as far as being able to pay privately. When we opened this classroom with JCPS, we said, well, let's do this partnership. We've had kids that are deaf or hard of hearing whose siblings are hearing. We would like for them to be able to attend as well. We will provide the assistant to that class that you would normally have to pay for. We'll pay for it. We'll do that. You guys can provide all the students. We would ask for a reserve of 5 if we have siblings of students that are deaf or hard of hearing in those areas. But if you need those spots, we can get those spots. If they're not filled, then we'll provide them to old employees or those areas at a cost, which is actually very minimal. Debbie.
First, thank you all for bringing up childhood apraxia of speech. We do have several students here who do have childhood apraxia of speech. They can hear, but the motor planning, they have problems speaking. And we do find that if we use the same methods we have with teaching children who have apraxia that we do with deaf, they are successful. And we have seen so much success. But to get to your exact question, we have asked repeatedly what will happen with the preschool children who are deaf, hard of hearing, or who have speech apraxia or severe learning language deficits. And we are told the same thing. I will tell you this, just early childhood in general, they do believe in mainstreaming. That is what they go for. That is their general belief. So I don't know if they're going to change that with our population. And so we'll have to wait and see. We are not privy to. We're not told.
At this time, we're unaware. And remember, our goal is to have these kiddos mainstreamed into
We like
regular
to
ed.
fill the gap and let them go and be successful.
Right. So, but at this time, if they're still qualifying, that we know of, there isn't a plan that way.
Yeah.
I can't imagine JCPS wouldn't do something without a plan. We're just unaware of it.
Hold on. I can't hear on
What we
Zoom.
need to get a mic over there. Sorry.
I guess that continues to be my question is how does JCPS plan to allow me to provide private speech therapy for my daughter still? Because if she's in preschool, speech therapy hours are 8 to 4. And if you in preschool, you're not going to make 8 to 4 ever. I know it's 9:30, but still, you're not going to make or be able to go to some clinic for speech therapy. And that was one of the blessings that we had here. So now they're going to negatively affect her ability to receive additional services. And traditional treatment for apraxia is 5 days a week. And right now, Annabelle gets about 2 days a week, which is better than nothing. But what am I going to do to fill that void? And so we're just going to wait for her to fail, for her to get before we do something, because I'm a proactive kind of mother. I don't want Annabelle to be behind her peers. I want her to be successful in her education. Education is important. Early childhood development is important. And so by catching her up with all of the additional therapies, JCPS still hasn't told us what that plan is to allow me to provide speech therapy to services on my dime, not anybody else's.
That's a very good question. And unfortunately, I can't answer that question as to what Jefferson County Public School System will or will not allow, whether they'll make an exception for you or not. Those are some opportunities that those people who are listening now can use and ask that question. What happens when we can no longer individualize a child's needs? How can you do that? That's part of what we're supposed to be able to do in a public school forum. And that's what we help to do, is individualize and increase that educational benefit. We try to maximize it. And so that your child does catch up, can progress in her academic career.
And that will, I'll be honest, because I had a special needs child in Jefferson County, and Jefferson County will never stop you from doing outside therapies. You'll always be encouraged to do the best for your child, but it will have to be done. You know, you check in, check out from school on your time. And so, but they'll never, ever stop you from doing that.
Do we have some more questions online? Yes.
We have 40 participants on Zoom, so there are quite a few questions.
Fantastic.
Our school district still struggles with closing the achievement gap. How does your program help with that?
Well, you can see from what we talked about in our average language growth for deaf or hard of hearing kids, it exceeded what was done nationally in our last thing. How we help close that gap? Good question. A lot of the things that we just spoke with and talked about were those additional services that we provide to our students here with no cost from JCPS. The additional therapies, the additional events, the additional things, we just keep adding that on until we can try and close that gap. We try and do it the best we can to get it as close to exceed or to meet or exceed their gap.
We also
our
have
educator
small
could
class
probably tell.
sizes.
Yes.
We have small class sizes, so they have they have a lot of chances to listen and to repeat and to practice. And it's very important when children have language delays. We also have every single teacher and staff member in this building are trained in speech and language strategies. One of the most important things in this building is audiology. Whereas a child in, say, a typical school might sit in their classroom with no audiology care, we have Dr. Beth back there who's actually attending. She will get to your child within 15 minutes of something breaking. So they will get up on air, and if she can't do it, she'll put a loaner on there, and Heiser will lend you that loaner to go home so that child can continue to hear and learn at home. So there's a lot of things we do. We don't just do it at that moment. We make sure every moment of school is meaningful. Even lunch, we have a teacher sitting at the lunch table teaching at that moment. Every moment here is teaching in the small atmosphere. But wait, there's more. Even our playground is designed for children with speech and language issues. We had a committee formed just to look at every tiny piece out there before we placed it. It was all meant. So that's how we close that achievement gap.
Thank you, Debbie. You can see why we make such a great team. If I don't know the answer, she knows the answer and vice versa. Other question?
Is there a specific city council meeting or JCPS board meeting that will be available to the public on this matter so that we may attend and voice our concerns directly with the decision makers before the decision is made, or has the decision already been made?
Two answers to that question. My understanding with the typical hearing peers classrooms, that decision is made and it will be removed at the end of this year. My hope is that JCPS could pivot and re-engage those parents who would be leaving, or at least be able to provide it so that new incoming parents would be able to tour here and see if that's something that they wanted to be with. As far as specific board meetings, we don't have one as of yet. I think that we could put in that link a way that you can sign up to speak at a board meeting, and we can work on that. As far as council meetings, I happen to have a council member here that I'm going to put on the spot, Council President David James. How does that process work? And if you provide us the information, can we put it on our website?
Sure. So anybody can come to any Metro Council meeting and speak as long as they sign up. So, or we have a meeting tonight, which is too late to sign up for. But the next meeting is on the 28th of April. That's a Thursday. It's always a Thursday at 6 p.m. And so all you do is call the council clerk's office and say, I'd like to sign up to speak for 3 minutes. And you get to say whatever's on your mind as long as it doesn't involve 4-letter words. And I would suggest that. Also, we have a community affairs committee, community affairs, health and education, ran by Councilwoman Barbara Shanklin. And so you could also contact her and ask this be a topic of special discussion. The only thing I would caution you about is that Metro Council has no power over the Board of Education. However, people do tune in and they do listen to that, which gives you your voice amplification. Okay.
Thank you. We bring it back to Shannon. I'm sure there's more questions. And what time do we have?
2:49.
Oh, you know, I have a watch on. It's been a while since I've worn one. I'm usually using my cell phone, but yes.
Okay, next question. If they are moved to a school that can't give them the same level of services, isn't this an issue that Mr. Porter in Department of Diversity and Equity should pay attention to?
Yes. I mean, that is one of the cornerstones of Jefferson County Public Schools, is to deliver equitable education. That's not saying that they can't provide what is required by law in their own location. We're not saying that they cannot provide what's required by law. What we're saying is our understanding is they're not going to be providing all the additional benefits that we raise money for and provide to the children at no cost to them.
What are the certification requirements for a deaf, hard of hearing teacher?
That would be a Ms. Woods question.
They have to be a certified teacher of the deaf. That means they have to graduate from that program from their university. Right now, the only university that has that program or hosts that program in Kentucky is EKU. Most of our teachers have that degree from EKU. However, we do have some from Fontbonne University. It just depends where they come, but they have to have a specific degree.
Next question.
How many of the 45 students are currently deaf, hard of hearing JCPS students?
Again, that would be a Ms. Woods question, and do the best you can with the numbers. Don't. Yes.
I'm going to go with 27. 27, yes, sticking with that.
One of the reasons why that's difficult to answer is when the kids are here, we don't separate them. We don't, just like we don't separate our teachers. We have 2 teachers of our own with the same qualifications of any teacher that's been provided by JCPS. They don't consider themselves separate. They consider themselves as one unit for the benefit of those children.
Is this a JCPS school board decision or a Metro Council decision?
Again, with Councilman David James, they do not have any power of the school board. This is the school board controls the school. It is an administrative decision first with Dr. Polio to then inform the school board. How Dr. Polio and the school board interact, whether the school board can override decisions or not, I don't know that question.
Could you explain what you were talking about when you mentioned Dawson Orman? Will they have a deaf, hard of hearing class there?
That would be a Debbie question.
I have spoken to Dawson Orman and that's a big question, and they absolutely do not know. They have not been informed. So the question is, we don't know.
So when I spoke with Dr. Polio to begin with, I've now been in communication with the Chief Financial Officer and the Vice President of Human Resources, and their names will be made available on our website as well. How I found out that JCPS was going to end the Hearing Peers classroom was through their Chief Financial Officer, and they are the ones that told me that they were going to place that school at Dawson Orman.
Are the students performing at grade level when they transition out of your program?
Miss Debbie.
That's a multi-level question. It depends on if they are what you call vanilla deaf or deaf is their only disability, or if they have deaf and plus other disabilities. Typically, if deafness is their only disability, yes, they are at grade level or above. If they have other disabilities as well, that is also just depending upon the child. But I would say, especially because my child went here and I can do it from a parent's point of view, my child they had multiple disabilities and she left higher than grade level.
Thank you. We do have an audience question here.
Yeah. Oh, Anita, yes.
I have a comment and a question.
Okay.
The comment is that obviously these decisions were made by people who have no idea what least restrictive environment means when it comes to children with the hearing loss. The question is, has JCPS said that they plan to have or announce how they plan to address the deaf and hard of hearing children that will be put back into?
So the question was, has JCPS informed us about what the program is going to look like at the end of next year. Because remember, we've gotten a commitment from Dr. Polio that they would continue this particular program through the end of next school year. The answer to your question is no, we don't know what that will look like. I hope that they rethink the answer moving forward even after next year, but we don't know how they're going to convert that into what they're going to provide in their home-based schools. Next online question. Oh, wait,
This is the last question on the chat.
perfect.
If JCPS can't meet the needs outlined in the IEPs these children have, don't they legally have to make adjustments to make sure the needs get met, including paying private tuition to get that access if necessary?
That's a very complicated answer. And the reason I say it's complicated is because the IEP process is designed with everybody involved, and they all have to come to an agreement on that. So without getting into the legality of it, it would be something that would have to be decided within the IEP. Now, again, remember that we're not saying JCPS is going to be providing what is legally required. What's legally required, we do that plus. So I think that's probably the best way I can answer that question without being able to look at individual IEPs and the IDEA and the Kentucky Code of Education. All of those things need to be involved in that conversation.
Okay, we have one final question.
Yes.
It would be a comment. So I have, I'm the mother of a deaf adult son. He's 39 years old. And he grew up in a school in California. But in that particular environment, we had the school for the deaf with other opportunities to mainstream or reverse mainstream into the deaf schools, and the kids who are deaf could go into the hearing classrooms, and all of the children learned together for all of the reasons that were outlined earlier. My concern is that if you look at the Kentucky Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing and the population that's served, it's deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind, late deafened, and speech impaired. And I'm very concerned about the students who have the apraxia, the speech delays or impairments. Those children need to have specialized teachers and opportunities that are afforded to the kids who have who are deaf and hard of hearing and are educated in those ways by people qualified and certified to do that. The additional concern that I have is that when children have language delays, are deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind, and speech impaired, the opportunity to socialize with the greatest number of peers that are able to communicate back with them, as well as staff who are trained to be able to communicate back with them, to prevent social isolation. Now, my background in behavioral health tells me that children and adults who are deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind, and have speech impairment have mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and PTSD due to social isolation. And I'll just have you think about the problems that have existed due to the pandemic with the hearing population experiencing mental health increase in anxiety, depression, and PTSD due to social isolation. And now think about those little children who are getting pulled back in and having not enough access to the programs that are available like they are here. I am very concerned, and I would really wonder how much knowledge of deaf and hard of hearing best practices are available top down at JCPS. I guarantee you it doesn't even exist in the regular teacher population, and I'm very concerned.
Thank you for your
Thank
concern.
you.
As a parent, thank you. Are there any other questions? I want to be respectful for your time. I believe we're close to the 3 o'clock, and that's 1 hour. Feel free to call or email, and we'll have that information on there. We'll answer whatever questions you have. Again, I just want to close with this. Our partnership with our public school system, the best way we can move forward is in partnership the way it is. I think that there are, or a true collaborative effort to take care of the population that needs these services. I think that there's a way to do that. I think that there's a way to do that at no cost to JCPS. And so that's what we're aiming to do for people ask what you can do. I think what we need out there is more people to understand and know that we can change something here to sustain it the way it's been for 50 years to keep this growth going, to take care of kids that need our services. So with that, I'll close, but feel free again, we'll have this posted. It's going to be it's recorded, as you all know. We'll have that up there too. We encourage anybody to tour here or talk to us, and we'll keep doing this as much as we need to do. Thank you. Thank you very much.